This is the Radical Rant Podcast. Radical Rant Podcast, July 10th, 2019. Adam, aka CSRadical, here with you guys. Thanks for bearing with me after missing a whole week. Long story short, I guess I'll come right out with it off the bat. Watched Spider-Man Tuesday night when I normally record, came back on Wednesday morning on my day off when I normally do, and the balcony construction outside my apartment was just never quiet the entire day. And then I played baseball in the evening, so my entire Wednesday was gone. So my plan was, okay, if I can't record either Thursday or Friday night before the weekend and get it out by then screw it, I'll just push it to the next week, because if I end up recording on the weekend, there's going to be few and few days to have any news for the following week. So in the spirit of not completely screwing up my following podcast, which is now this week, I figured we'll just push everything to this week. Makes it a lot more interesting. So I've got 2 weeks worth of stuff going on, obviously. Let's just start into it. Like I said earlier, I watched Spider-Man Far From Home last Tuesday. As I'm recording this Tuesday night, the week after. I'm going to talk about it right now, non-spoilered. I am going to do a separate video as soon as I finish recording this to do an actual full spoiler review there. I don't know when that will be up. I'm hoping both the podcast and that should be up the same day. Could be a day after that, I'm not sure. But, just so you guys know. So, I will admit that I wasn't necessarily looking forward to this movie, but it's not because I'm not interested in Spider-Man or it's because the last one was bad. No, it's none of that. It's just straight up burnout from Avengers Endgame. So anything post that movie was going to just... It wasn't necessarily going to be a bad movie, but it was going to be something where just the hype train isn't really there because the hype train is still recovering from one hell of a journey. So I walked into the theater like I do most times, just excited, happy to see this keep going, and really curious at the very least on what was going to happen with Mysterio in this movie. That's not a spoiler, it's in the goddamn trailer. And by the time that we got in and things were moving, it was slow, I'm not going to lie to you. It was really slow and wasn't really catching me for a little while. By the time it gets to the second half, however, it picks up and really goes absolutely fucking crazy. Without spoiling it, obviously, there are a few twists and turns along the way that, you could probably see coming, but in the way that it's done, it doesn't come exactly when you think it will, which is what was very nice about it. So I thought it was going to take a little bit longer, but instead it happened much sooner than I thought. And once things get going, there is some incredibly amazing looking scenes. One of the final fights is just unreal. One of the coolest things I think I've seen in a Marvel film, period. And the post-credits scene might actually be my personal favorite now, because it flips everything upside down to the point that Phase 4 now of the MCU looks like it's going to be crazy, especially when it comes to what's going on with Spider-Man. All things considered, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was okay. I'm not going to lie to you, I wasn't blown away by him, as I kind of figured he would. I didn't think he was going to end up blowing me away, and I was completely correct on that point. He wasn't bad, but I wouldn't say that he walked out being this awesome villain that, ended up really going out there and being what we thought he was. Although Mysterio's always been a character that, both in the TV shows and in video games, and I've never really attached to begin with. So I'm the guy that grew up with the Green Goblin, Venom and Carnage, and characters of that ilk, Doc Ock and the like. Mysterio was just kind of those outliers where it's just I don't really have an opinion either way. But it was curious and interesting to see this time how, they turned him into a hero in this movie. And, because, you're so used to seeing him as a villain. So to get that flip side makes the movie a lot more interesting and a lot more curious, because you're assuming going in that Mysterio is the villain, but the movie starts him off as the hero. And I went through the entire movie thinking, man, is he just going to be a hero the whole way through? And I don't have a definitive answer for you on that. So you'll have to actually watch the movie to find out. Or, if you've already seen it, then you can go to the spoiler review, whenever that gets posted up, and you'll get your answer there. But all in all, the movie was, like I said, very slow for the first half, a lot better in the second half. It's not going to be like one of my highly rated ones. I think at best I can give this like a 3.5 stars, like 7 out of 10 at best. Like, it's good. It's very good by the end of it, but the beginning is so slow. It's the same as what Captain Marvel was, where the first little bit is just, it's not interesting. It didn't grab me, and I was sitting there being like, man, am I actually getting bored from a Spider-Man movie? And then it started picking up, and I'm like, okay, here we go. So, obviously, if you're an MCU guy, you've probably already seen this, but if you're on the fence, there's no reason for you to not to see it. Just be aware that it takes a little while to warm up. That's about it. Okay, a couple of cool things I want to talk about. Found out today, I don't know if this was officially announced today, but today I saw that Cuphead is actually going to get a cartoon on Netflix, which is going to expand upon its universe. Now, I actually haven't had a chance to play the game because I own PS4, so I can't get it there. I know it's on PC, I just haven't seen a good deal for it on Steam, for example, that's made me pull that trigger. So, not to mention my backlog is still going. Like, I'm 125 hours into Dragon Quest XI, and I think I've still got a good another 30 or 40 to go, depending on how much grinding I feel like doing and completing as much as I want. So getting around to other games is taking a lot longer than I would have thought. But I think it's really cool to get a video game related property that's not going to be some really terrible live action film. To see that Cuphead's getting a cartoon actually gives it a fighting chance now, I think. Because instead of the traditional means that we always see with a lot of these games getting films where they don't really stick to the source material that hard, this show has to stick to the source material because it's literally going to be a cartoon modeled after the same art style the show has. So I think if there's any game that has a really good chance of coming out with a much better product in terms of a television show or a film, Cuphead is going to be one of those ones, because it doesn't have source material to really go from. Like, it's a boss rush game. Like, there's not a whole lot of story to take from. There's no real like voicing there, so it's not like all as long as they don't fuck up the main Cuphead character, it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's its own thing now. So I think that's really interesting. Now, naturally, obviously, the people that like to complain about everything did the same thing they did when the game first came out, where they complained about, oh, well, the art style set back in the day when everything was so much more racist and whatever else, and we have to keep saying the same comment of, guys, it's 2019. This is a present-day game. Just because the art style is modeled after what Disney was way back in the Steamboat Willie days and how society was then does not mean it's a correlation between the two. So for those people that are bitching about the sake of bitching, I mean, stop, I guess? But no, I'm super excited for Cuphead to have an animated series. And I personally don't have Netflix right now because I already have Crunchyroll, and my other live action stuff of choice is Amazon Prime Video, because I already have a Prime account. And I can't justify getting a third service, not because I can't afford it, but because it's like I barely use the two, so getting a third is just almost pointless of that. But I think that's a really cool idea, and that'd be the kind of thing that might get me interested in at least taking a look at Netflix just for a month and binge through that show. So, that's that. And then the other cool thing I want to talk about before I get on to a couple of other stories is Summer Games Done Quick. I almost said Super Games Done Quick. That feels like it almost could be something, couldn't it? But no, SGDQ had its annual summer show. Their second of two this year. Awesome Games Done Quick being done in January, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It was January or February. It's in the winter. But this year, they not only broke their record for funds generated for Doctors Without Borders, which is a charity that provides medical support for countries that can't afford to have that. So I think that's absolutely a wonderful charity to go after. Their record, if I'm not mistaken, was just shy of 2.7 million, I think. I think it was like 2.86, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I remember seeing that number. They not only broke that record, but they shattered it and hit another milestone. They finished SGDQ, and that was counting all the revenue from, say, Twitch and their sponsors and everything, plus all the donations. In total, ended up being $3,005,113. That is incredible. So the first year that Games Done Quick has ever done $3 million. And I think they only hit $2 million for the first time, I think like a year and a half ago. So we've bumped $1 million in a year and a half. That's fucking crazy. And that shows that, once again, we in the gaming community are capable of doing some pretty fucking cool things. And there's a lot to enjoy this year. I haven't gotten around to watching all of it. I don't necessarily watch everything. What happens is, if I have a chance, I'll watch some of the Twitch stream, but most of the time I'll just watch everything on YouTube once they post it all. I have already watched the Chrono Trigger finale twice. I've watched... Which one was it? It was Perfect Dark was one of them. I watched, I think it was a Marble Madness co-op run, which is cool. Oh, the big one that I watched was a couple of Punch-Out runs. And Zallard one is an unbelievable Punch-Out runner. And he did the arcade version without any mistakes. And then he blindfolded, not Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which he's done before, but he did the Wii version of Punch-Out and did it for about an hour. Blindfolded, played through a game for an hour. And the best part is, didn't lose a single match. Not one. Not Super Macho Man, not Mr. Sandman, not Donkey Kong, not... is it Aaron Ryan, the Irish guy? And this is all the bonus fight. This is the second thing where Glass Joe has the helmet and all the various other gimmicks that the other characters have. No, he went through the entirety twice and didn't lose a fight blindfolded. That was incredible. And I don't usually care much for blindfold runs, but when it's at that amount, that's insane. To go that long is crazy, and that was one of those ones that you're breaking everything that I could ever think of about that game. I always love watching the GDQ stuff because I'm not too big into speed running, but it's nice to once or twice a year, and now it's twice a year, to be able to take in at least a few things that I like. I usually watch mostly games that I actually really love. I don't just watch random runs. I'm not a Crash guy, so I won't watch Crash Bandicoot runs. I'm not a Spyro guy, so I won't watch Spyro runs. But if someone's playing Mario RPG and it's a 3.5 hour run, I want to see how the hell they finish that game that fast. And then a couple years ago, they did a run of Final Fantasy VI where they used Realm's sketch ability and completely broke the game and finished it so much faster. It's stuff like that that's so cool to me. And I love that not only can I enjoy myself watching something like that, but you can make so much money for charity doing that. And the fact that they hit $3 million is unfucking real. And that should be applauded for being one of the coolest things that we'll see all year in terms of gaming. To raise $3 million for those who need it. And that's always a cool thing to go after. So let's get on to two stories before I get to our big finale here. This is looking to shaping up to be about 40-45 minutes, maybe even shorter than that. Might even be like a 35-minute again. And if this is how it is, I'm planning, by the way, on doing a pro wrestling theme one. I'm not sure I'm going to name it. I am having a few ideas there, like the hot tag is one that I'm coming up with. I got to see if anybody's already trademarked that. So, but my plan on that one is to have a quick 20 to 30 minute show just talking about what's happened in the week in wrestling. And if this show ends up being similar to that, I think I'm okay with that, to have quicker podcasts. Because I think solo doing an hour is a challenge, especially if it's subjects that I'm not too big on. The gaming questionnaire thing I did for Canada Day was something that I could easily elaborate on and just talk without thinking. But when it comes to stories, every week, you're not always going to get stuff that, you can go for 15 minutes on. These are sometimes 3 to 5. And even with the 2 weeks, there weren't a number of stories. Because remember, too, I'm not just taking every story that I read. I'm taking everything that I actually have an interest in and can say something about. So we've got 3 more things to go. So the first one is Shenmue 3 is finally starting to offer at least the potential of refunding for people that weren't going to get it on Steam anymore. So for those who don't know, Shenmue 3 was kickstarted, and in the Kickstarter, they mentioned that they were going to be giving out Steam keys to those who wanted them. And all of a sudden, we found out recently that Epic Games Store suddenly bought their exclusive rights. And people that Kickstarter will say, well, what about me? I wanted a Steam key for this, and that's why I gave you the money. And they had the audacity to say, no, we're not going to refund you. Or we're not going to give you any... It's like, no, you're going to have to get this on Epic Games Store, or that's it. Now, at the very least, they're saying, hey, we can possibly give refunds, or we can give you an Epic Games Store and a PS4 key or something to that extent. And it's like, just give the fucking refunds. Accept the fact that you got greedy, you took some money, and you pissed off fans. I've been, for a while, I've been getting annoyed by this Epic Games Store or Steam debate, because I've always been in the case of, I'm a console guy, and I don't get mad when games get put on Xbox but not PS4. And here are people that are just mad that a service, it's not even a different, medium. It's not a different outlet, or sorry, not outlet, a different machine. You can do it on your own laptop, on Steam and Epic Games Store. So, generally speaking, I don't like how people are getting so complainative about, having to have two stores. Now, I get that maybe you don't want to support Epic because of certain practices, but let's be honest, don't pretend like Valve is the knight in shining armor either. But, if people want to be that way, but then you don't get to bitch that you don't have the other one. Again, I wish I could play Super Mario Odyssey or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on my PS4, because I don't own a Switch, and I don't know if I can afford to own a Switch. So I'm really upset that I can't play those games, but I'm not going to go out there and say, Nintendo, you should release these games on PlayStation 4 because that's what I want to use. And yet here people have the audacity to go, well, you should put this on Steam because that's where I want it. No, they fucking don't. Now, if you want to say, well, I don't want to own anything on Epic Games Store because I don't like their practices, then fucking do that. But otherwise, stop complaining about it. But the Shenmue 3 case, I can totally get behind because Shenmue specifically said they were going to offer Steam keys when you kickstarted the game. So you actually put money and funded their game. This isn't them saying, hey, we're releasing Shenmue 3, and this didn't take any backing from fans, and we're going to put it on Epic Games Store, and people got mad. No, fuck you, you wouldn't get a leg to stand on. But people legitimately funded that game. And because a lot of them thought it was going to be on Steam. So the second they pull the rug out from under them, yeah, you really do get a right to be pissed. So I understand that. And now that they're at least saying, hey, we all came together and thought it'd be a great idea to do that. It's like, no, motherfucker, you got lamb blasted for refusing to give refunds the first time, and now you're realizing, oh, maybe we shouldn't piss off people and get really bad press. That's not going to do very well for us. So, good on them, I guess, but you shouldn't have made that fucking stupid decision in the first place. The other thing, and originally I was going to go through the entire article for it, but there's an article that just came out that's straight up said Nintendo reaffirms that it will not censor third-party games, and saying that doing so would inhibit the industry. And this comes up to that debate that I know I've talked about before, where the idea that, say, for example, Sony is censoring a lot of games, and I know this because I am a Sony fan, and I have to hear about it all the time now. And I've said this several times, and I will completely stick by that. I do not like the fact that Sony is censoring a lot of games. The fact that they're censoring, say, adult-themed visual novels because they're like, oh, well, this is the kind of stuff that we should, we have to regulate, and because, we don't want to be seen by younger viewers. It's like, that's what the fucking ESRB is for. That's what age gating your shit is for. But I digress. I also do not like the fact that people are pretending right now that Sony is the only one that's ever done this before. Nintendo, for the longest time, because this is the thing, people are acting like, oh, Nintendo is the savior for all adult-themed games. It's like, do we not remember when Nintendo used to censor everything? They censored the summer DLC of Fire Emblem Awakening, where Tharja was changing into a swimsuit, but you don't see any nudity. She's literally tugging on her bikini that's already perfectly fitted her. And they decided, it'd be great, let's put a curtain over it. And in fact, the curtain actually makes it look like now she's wearing nothing, because it's situated so perfectly you don't see any bikini bottoms. So you actually make it make it seem like she's literally like naked from the bottom half. And even worse, there's another one with Cordelia where her top is like, she's just fixing her top and it looks like it's falling off. And it's none of that censored. It's completely left alone. And then, for example, on the Wii U, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, the Fire Emblem Shin Megami Tensei crossover, also had a bunch of swimsuit costumes censored. And this is the previous generation. This isn't like 15 years ago. This is like 5 years ago. Less than 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So people are pretending that all of a sudden, like, oh, Nintendo is our savior. It's like, no, they've probably done what Sony is probably going to do in about another year, where they'll have heard enough bad press about all the censorship they're doing on content, and they realized, oh shit, maybe we should stop doing that, and we might look a lot better in the eyes of our fans if we stop doing that shit. And that's exactly what's happening. Sony is now playing the role of Nintendo. And in about a year or two, Sony's going to do the exact same thing, where Microsoft is probably going to turn around and start censoring more because there's going to be pressure from stockholders or whatever the fuck else. And Sony will turn around and be like, we don't censor anything because we think it inhibits the industry. And here's the thing, like, I think anything that stifles creativity does inhibit the industry. So Nintendo is right, censoring third-party games does inhibit the industry. So, to Sony, what the fuck is wrong with you? Use the age gating that you are supposed to have on your system. Parental control should solve this problem for any account that is not of the age of the games that need to be doing this. And then with anything else, like, just relax. It's not going to hurt anybody. We've already proved with a million other fucking studies that violence doesn't correlate to any real life violence. So what the hell is a fucking fake titty going to do in a video game? Really? Like, is it really going to do anything? And then to anybody who is still going out there and being like, Sony needs to fucking understand that the industry can't deal with this stuff anymore and everybody else isn't having this problem. Remember that every other company has done this before. And somebody else will pick up the slack as soon as English is hard. Someone will pick up the slack as soon as Sony, that's the tongue twister right there, as soon as Sony, decides to stop being a bunch of morons and not censor everything. Somebody's going to pick up that slack, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Nintendo, whether it's Valve, whether it's Epic, if the Epic Game Store is still running. One of them is going to do the same fucking bullshit. And we're all going to be sitting here in the room being like, how can this company do this? Are they idiots? The answer is yes, they are. So for now, Sony's the idiot. And we'll see how long it takes for them to stop and somebody else be the idiot for them. The last thing I want to talk about, because I did mention earlier about, not being able to own a Switch. Well, there are rumors that there is a Switch Mini in the works. I don't know specifically what that means. I imagine the first and foremost thing is that the Switch itself, not the dock for the television, is just going to be a smaller Switch. It might be more of a size of like almost like not even a phone, but like maybe a quarter smaller than what the Switch is. For me, though, what makes this rumor interesting is that this should mean that the price is going to drop for the Switch, whether it's the default model or this new mini model, if it is something that's going to happen, or both. Which to me is now a very interesting proposition. Now, sure, the PS5 is probably coming out next year, but for me personally, if this is the kind of thing that Nintendo is going to announce soon and say come out for the holidays this year, that's something that I'm actually interested in. Because we're in an age at this point where there's going to be a probably a good 12-month span between, I don't know, let's say the fall this year and the fall next year, where games are going to be a little bit less on the PS4 for me. And it already is kind of being like that because I don't see anything on the horizon that I'm going to go after. So you know what? Because we have a lot of extra time, I'm going to go and take a look at the coming soon for PlayStation 4 and see if there's anything currently that I actually have an interest in. I mean, there's some that are on the fringe, things that I'll buy later, but there's nothing that is necessarily, I am going to get that. Because we're not going to get anything until we get to Cyberpunk in March. Or in April, sorry, because Watch Dogs is in March, and unfortunately Watch Dogs is going to have to take a back seat. So as I'm looking down the list, the new Wolfenstein Youngblood I am kind of curious about, but again, it's a game that I'm going to wait Kill the Game. I really want to play that because I'll play anything Arc System Works comes out with, but it's a fighting game, so I will probably wait a long time. I'm still waiting to play Dragon Ball Fighter Z because, again, I can't justify paying a lot of money for a fighting game. As I go into August, it's looking like a whole lot of nothing, I think. I mean, I see that Black Desert Online is going to be coming to PlayStation in late August, but I'm not sure if I'll have time to pull something like that off. I still got to worry about fucking Phantasy Star Online 2 whenever that shows up. Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I might look into in September, but that's something that's obviously, a maybe. I'm pretty much done with Destiny 2, which is sad, but, you play a game for 2,000-3,000 hours, you kind of get burnt out. September is looking like nothing. October is about the same. November 13th, maybe. November 8th, is Death Stranding, which I will wait for just because I want to know what the hell it is. Doom Eternal, same deal, in November 22nd. I'm curious about. The only thing that might actually really get my attention is the remake of 13 in November the 13th, which, for those who don't remember 13, it was a game on the PlayStation 2. I want to say GameCube. I'm not sure if Xbox had it. I want to assume all three did. It was like if you took GoldenEye 007 but made it into like the cel-shaded spy game, and it was really fucking cool. I remember, if you got really good headshots, it would do like a comic book strip sort of animation to show the headshots. So like you could pick up just literal pieces of glass and throw it at people, and if you got a guy right in the eye, it would do like this comic strip showing that. And that was super goddamn cool. So I'm actually really interested in that. And then after that, that's it. The entire year, that's it for me. The Final Fantasy Remake is in March. Watch Dogs Legion is in March. Cyberpunk 2077 is in April, and Marvel's Avengers is in May, but I'm not even sure about that one. So literally, from here until March, there is not one game that I am 100% playing. There are games that I'm curious and might play if there's a good deal for it, and if the review ends up being good. Oh, sorry, I didn't notice in October. The Outer Worlds is also October 25th. That's same kind of deal. Like, I'm excited, but again, would rather wait for the price to go down. So, for that period of time, there's nothing. So if the Nintendo Switch happened to have a new version and was cheaper, I would be very interested in that. Very interested. Because the list of games that I want to play on that fucking console just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now that Fire Emblem is getting a game out for that just keeps adding to the list. More and more just keep coming. And I get sadder and sadder because I think that there's more games I'm potentially missing out on. And that's really stressful for me because I do like playing a lot of those games. Like I had a chance to play Mario Odyssey a little bit and I loved it. I've had a chance to play a little bit of Breath of the Wild. It looks amazing and I wish I can play the entire thing. But I just can't justify the idea of paying, like, I think it's like $350 or $400 Canadian for the console, and each game is $70, $80. And even if the ones that I want to play, because they're usually the Nintendo first parties, they're very rarely on sale, and if they are, it's not for much. It's not usually that much. So it's a little depressing, because it's like, I want to be able to play all these games, but I'm not in the financial status to buy that much more. Not to mention the amount of time that I have is also suspect for that. It's not as simple as just, oh, well, I'll buy Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and I'll finish it in a month. No, like, I've been playing Dragon Quest XI for about a month and I'm still not quite there. So as I look at the list of, like, I'm looking at Metacritic now for all the best games by score and looking at all the games that I definitely would want to play on there. And right off the bat, obviously Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Bayonetta 2 is on there. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because you always got to own Mario Kart. As I go further down, Mario Maker I've always been curious about. I'm trying, because here's the other problem too, is that a lot of these are all indie games that you can get everywhere else, so I'm trying to get through all the games that are not just exclusive or that are on everything, and it's becoming a lot harder than I thought it would be. But yeah, I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles, because I'm a big JRPG guy, is something. As I look a little bit more down the list, I mean, other than that, Mario Rabbids was okay. I played it a little bit. I think that game's kind of weird for me, though, because I look at it as like an XCOM game, but XCOM I'm supposed to be stressed out by, and the game is so lighthearted on Switch for Mario Rabbids that I don't feel right playing that game, because I know I'm supposed to be stressed, and yet I feel like it's too lighthearted and cheesy that it's trying to like de-stress me while it's stressing me. It's kind of strange. But that's the case that I'm in, where there's a lot out there that I want to play and I don't have the time. And then when it comes to the Switch, I also don't have the money to just go out and buy a whole nother console, especially when I should also be saving up for a console that I might be buying, not necessarily next year, but probably within the year after, within the 12 months after it's released. Like, because let's just assume it comes out October, November next year. I'll be looking to get a PS5, which also means I'm going to want to have a 4K television as well, which is another investment. So, in my situation, it becomes a lot harder. So, when I hear the rumors of something like a Switch Mini, it makes me wonder, okay, but does that mean that we're going to see a console that's cheaper for Nintendo? Is that something that I might be able to look into? Or does that at the very least mean that the other default consoles will start to get dropped in price, or you'll see sales for them a little bit more, maybe a better package with, say, a Breath of the Wild or a Mario Odyssey or even a Fire Emblem? That option becomes open. And it goes back to how stressful, this is where it all comes back to. In fact, in a couple weeks from now, I'm going to go to a small convention in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada called Con Bravo. And I run 3 panels there yearly now, and I'm hoping it stays that way for next year. I run one for anime discussion for the entirety of 2019, although technically it's from August of 2018 to the end of July this year. The same goes for the Con Bravo Club panel, which is a play off of the Bullet Club in professional wrestling. So it's a long form panel about just professional wrestling in general. Obviously, with All Elite Wrestling, it's going to make it much more interesting this year. But last but not least, I do a panel on the entirety of the last 12 months of gaming. And the one thing that I am going to make perfectly clear in that panel at some point is that the console war needs to come to an end, because I don't think it's very much existent as it stands today. The amount of exclusives out there don't actually constitute much of a console war anymore. In fact, since so many people believe that consoles are going to be dead by the end of this next generation, you got to wonder. I'm not in that camp. I think consoles could still go for a couple more generations if they want to. It all depends on the customer base, because if internet can't handle streaming, I'm not interested in going that route until our ISPs can offer us cheap, affordable internet that can handle streaming, because right now they can't. Especially in the States, not to mention Canada. It's somewhat doable here, but the things that I hear from the States when it comes to internet is insane. I can't imagine how anybody can get half-decent internet there. But the most important thing that I don't understand with the console war today is why everybody is still so hell-bent on fighting for their side. Like I said, I'm a Sony guy. But I don't sit here and tell you that Sony is the greatest of the consoles. I don't tell you that Sony has the better games. I don't tell you that Sony is the best company. I just play the games. And I rate them as such. And if I personally think that Sony has some great games, it's not saying that Sony has all the good games. No, it's saying Sony has good games. I've played games on the Xbox One at friends' places. I play games on the Switch at friends' places. Every console has something for you. Every console has specific things for specific people. For me, the reason that I have switched back and forth in the last 3 generations, I started at PS2. Actually, I should even go further. I started at Sega Genesis. It's the first console I grew up with. Moved to Super Nintendo. Moved to N64. And then got my first PlayStation in PlayStation 2. Then I went to Xbox 360. And now I'm at PS4. So when I first made my decisions about actually owning consoles, it was the Xbox 360. PS2 was our parents' choice, because we were still young at that point. Xbox 360 I only got because my brother ended up getting one from a friend for cheap. So I was playing off of that console, and eventually I wanted to get my own so we could have one each. And it made sense to get a 360 as well because all my friends were there that I've been playing with for a little while. Makes sense. Also, the PS3 was a little more expensive back then compared to the 360. Then, as I've said before at E3, Microsoft revealed their Xbox One and decided that they wanted to advertise it as a TV box and an ESPN box more than they wanted to advertise it for the gaming. And I took that as a personal slight. So I went to Sony. Although it wasn't the only reason. The DRM stuff also bothered me that Xbox was pushing. But the key thing that Sony had over Xbox, I mean, specifically it was one game, but overall it was the Japanese market. But Persona 5 was going to be that game. And it may be the reason why I stick to PS5 as well, because the Japanese market tends to swing towards the Sony console more than anything else. The other reason, because I know people thinking, well, Nintendo's got a lot of the Japanese console market. Well, that's because the Nintendo Switch is not something I'm necessarily fully interested in. There are games, obviously, I want to play on it, but I don't care, and I've said it before, I don't care about the Switch's mobile aspect. I'm not a big mobile guy. I don't play a lot of games on my phone. I basically play gacha games, and I don't really play them that hard. I just log into them, reap the bonuses, and then when I have something I want to do, I'll do it, but I don't spend a lot of time on it. I don't play anything on my phone, and I haven't owned a handheld console since the 3DS when Persona Q came out, and even then I barely played it. I got it more or less because I really like the design of the console. The Switch, to me, it's a TV console for me. And that console is not as strong as a PS4 is. And when the PS5 comes out, it certainly will be nowhere close as powerful as the PS5. So the games I will be playing on the PlayStation 5 are certainly going to be a lot more in-depth and crazy than they would be on the Switch. Now, I'm not saying the Switch doesn't have good games and they don't have games that are very impressive. Obviously, Breath of the Wild's shown that. But for me personally, if I'm going to pick one over the other, Sony just happens to have the one that I like. And to people outside of the Sony fan base, if you're a Nintendo guy or an Xbox guy, you seem to suddenly get your guard up. And I don't understand why that is. Because nowhere am I saying the Nintendo's a shit console. Nowhere am I saying the Xbox is a shit console. I know there are people that do that, but take those idiots for what they are, just idiots. You don't have to give them anything. So, I don't get this idea that we're still fighting for sides when it comes to the console wars. It's like we're fighting like we're Democrats and Republicans. Liberals, conservatives, whatever you are, left or right. It's like a three-party system here. Actually, it's a four-party system because the PC master race over here, I got some things to say about them too. So it's a four-party race essentially, when in reality, we're supposed to be one big community. And I don't get why it has to be such a big deal. For me, I get to play the games that I like to play on the console that I was most interested in at the time. If I wanted to play games on PC, I could. My laptop is very capable of doing that. But I like having the laptop as a second screen so I can watch YouTube while I'm playing games, or I can chat with my friends on Facebook and not have to be full screened. Because I don't have a battle station like you see a lot of people post on Reddit, for example. I have a laptop. I don't have a PC. I don't have like a full machine with 3 monitors and a really crazy desk and all this bullshit lighting that I don't understand why people would do. Like, I like cool looking stuff too, but sometimes it seems a bit much. But I mean, if you got the money, I guess to each their own. But for me, PS4 is what I got. And the laptop is what I got, and I'm using it the way that I want to use it. And I would never chastise somebody else for doing everything differently. If they decide to use a Switch and have a PC as well. Up to them. I don't care. If you own all 4, too, what's the point of having the console war? So, in the end, it's like, why bother? And then when we get to the PC Master Race, it's also the you plebs, you're not even playing on the best hardware. Fuck off. It's video games. Who cares? As long as the games are fun, I don't care how good they look. I don't care how the frame rate is. I mean, if the frame rate dips like a motherfucker, then yeah, I care. But if it's a consistent 30 frames, I'm okay with it not being 60. I think we should be getting to a point, like I've said before, where consoles should be aiming to be 60 frames per second on every game. But if it's still 30 for some, fine, whatever. I can deal with that. I've been dealing with that my entire life. It's the other thing, too, when I've seen people be like, oh, this new console generation doesn't look like it's going to be very interesting. So what? So what? The games are what's more important. And we're also getting to a point that the only thing that we can do to go further is to incorporate AR and VR. And like I said in a previous podcast, I don't give a shit about VR. Actually, I think it was the Canada Day special. I don't give a shit about VR until it's perfected. We're not perfected right now. So who cares? We'll get to that bridge when we cross it. In the end, the console war is dumb now. It's stupid. It doesn't need to be here anymore. Let's just talk about the shit we like instead of worrying about what the other's playing. Oh, you're into MMOs? Fucking basement-dwelling pleb. Oh, you're into first-person shooters? All you play is Call of Duty? Oh, you fucking frat boy douche. Like, what the fuck, man? It's a video game. Who gives a shit? Enjoy what you enjoy. It doesn't hurt you to have other people enjoying other games on different platforms. So knock it off already. Go back and just enjoy what it used to be. Because when I used to own a Sega Genesis, a Super Nintendo, an N64, I was never thinking about my friend who owned a Dreamcast. I was never thinking about my friend that owned, a Game Gear or a original PlayStation or a fucking Wii. Like, I didn't care. All I was worried about is, man, Final Fantasy VI is awesome. Final Fantasy X is awesome. Chrono Cross is really good. Persona 4 is fucking amazing. Mass Effect 2 might be the best game I'll ever play. This is where I have been my entire life, and it's not changing. It's not hard to just enjoy what you're enjoying and not worry about what everybody else is doing. It's the same thing when we talk about reviews. It's the same thing when we talk about, first impressions. It's our own thoughts. You don't have to take everybody's single thoughts as like it's your own. If somebody likes this, you don't have to. And if they don't like it, you don't have to fucking attack them for it. Or question their gamer card if they should be revoked from it. Enough already. Let's just get back to what it was and just enjoy video games like we always have been and always should be. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this. Like I said, I'm going to shut this off right now and then immediately go into recording my spoiler review of Spider-Man Far From Home. And that will be hopefully posted the same day. If not, I would expect it on Thursday. At the very latest by Friday. I guess it depends if something suddenly happens Thursday night and I don't get the chance to record. Because my work shifts are 9:45 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. So when I come home, I only have about a 3 to 4 hour window if I want to get a proper amount of sleep to get stuff done. And this isn't like a full-time job for me. And this isn't even something I'm taking so seriously that I need to hit deadlines. So you know what? If it takes an extra day, it takes an extra day. So that being said, as always, like and subscribe if you enjoy this stuff. Don't forget to share the video with all your friends. And we'll see you next time. Or tomorrow if this review comes out properly.